Autotune has destroyed modern music, making it boring, inauthentic, and creating superstars that really have no business singing on a stage. At least that's the way the story goes.
I like version 2 better.
Why?
It seemed like the vocals were more forward, more like, I don't know, cleaner, crispier maybe?
Autotune has been a part of mainstream music production for decades, and it's like social media. Even though you might not like some of the impact it's having on culture, at this point, it's not going anywhere. But should we really care? Like, is Autotune really that bad for music? If you just went by the comments on this channel and even by really popular videos online, you would think that Autotune is destroying society as we know it. Personally, I never cared about this debate. Fact is, you need to tune your vocals if you want your stuff to compete. So what's the point in complaining about it? Plus, I would rather listen to a vocal that's in tune versus out of tune, and I'm pretty sure the general public feels the same way. So I decided to go out and test whether regular music listeners prefer vocals with Autotune or without.
But you either feel it or you don't, sinking in, there's no in between, and you give it all and you take it all back, tired of wondering where the hell you've been with all this time you have, guessing now you're spending it. I know what you do now, but you either feel it or you don't, sinking in, there's no in between, and you give it all and you take it all back, tired of wondering where the hell you've been with all this time you have, guessing now you're spending it. I know what you do now.
What do you think? Which one did you like better?
It's a tough one. I think it's the second one that I like better.
Okay.
Version 2 sounded a bit more punchy and a bit more clarity.
The second one.
So they sound identical.
So
I couldn't pick out any difference
Okay.
at all.
The second one. Number one.
The second one. Or the first one. Sorry. First
I
one.
like the first one.
Yeah.
I like the second version.
The second one.
I tried to make this a pretty fair test, meaning I wasn't comparing an absolutely horrible vocal versus a pristinely tuned one. The raw vocals here are actually pretty close and a little above average in terms of pitch. I simply got people to listen to two versions of the same song, one untuned and one tuned, except I didn't tell them what was different about it.
So, last night got way out of hand. You know, I don't care enough to understand. I don't remember enough to even try to forget. So now it's black coffee and a cigarette. But I think I know where we were. But it was dark, so I can't be sure. Let me buy you a drink before you get out of town. Oh, you're pretty good company, I want you around.
They both sounded the same.
I tested this on friends and family first, and 7 out of 10 picked the version with the tuned vocal. And what surprised me is that even though they picked that version, only a few of them mentioned the vocal specifically.
I felt like his voice was softer, less whiny.
Well, I do think the second one was auto-tuned or mixed differently or better.
Is that because I'm always telling you when I can hear autotune on songs on the radio?
Probably.
And many times, people said they picked that version because of things completely other than the vocal.
The bass was fuller, coming out a little clearer.
Just the highs were clear, a little bit crisper highs.
Okay.
And then a bit punchier bass.
The second one sounded softer and, yeah, not as harsh.
I wouldn't have guessed they were auto-tuned,
No.
for sure.
Did you notice that at all?
Not at all. I don't know why, but the entire mix sounded better on the second one than the first
Okay.
one to me.
Again, there was nothing different between these tracks except for the vocal tuning. So what's going on here? Well, part of this is probably just people being nervous and overthinking it while they're listening and trying to guess what sort of trick I'm playing on them. But I also think it shows how the average person hears music as a full package. So even though the vocal tuning was the only difference, it still impacted their overall impression of the song and their experience of it. But only 10 people wasn't enough, so I decided to test this further by going to my newsletter list and asking them to listen and vote on which version they like better and what they think was different about it. So I sent an email with a link to a blind A/B test, and here are the results. Out of 1,024 people, 819 chose the tuned version. Okay, that's 66%. And remember, this time it's music producers voting, and they could have listened to it as many times as they wanted. And this time around, vocals was the most mentioned word in the responses, but things like overall mix, drums, balance, fuller, clearer, those words were mentioned almost as much. In fact, while about 350 people mentioned the vocal, they said things like it was smoother, clearer, more upfront, more present, and only 25 people, that's only 2%, specifically mentioned that version B had better vocal tuning. This whole experiment was really interesting, and it didn't go exactly as I planned. On the one hand, I fully expected the tuned vocals to win, but I thought that number would be a lot higher than 66%. And what I didn't expect at all was that so many people would be convinced there was something else different about the tracks. So what can we conclude here? Well, for one thing, it's clear that our brain can play a lot of tricks on us, and we can be convinced that we're hearing things that are not there at all. Still, the data says majority of people prefer the sound of tuned vocals, even when the raw vocal is pretty close. And most interesting of all, the pitch of the vocal clearly influenced how people described all the other sounds in the mix. Now think about the implications for your work. People are going to think that your mix sounds clearer, fuller, warmer, punchier, simply by having the vocals in tune. That's why I've been saying for 10 years on YouTube and in my courses that the biggest reason people have amateur sounding mixes is because they have sloppy source tracks with bad tuning, bad timing, just bad performances. And that really is the big separator between amateur and pro. I realize the layers of questions go deep here. Do people only prefer auto-tune vocals because that's what we've been forced to listen to for the past 25 years? And are we worse off as a culture because we're elevating average or even mediocre singers to superstar status when they frankly would not cut it without tuning software? I don't really know the answer to those questions, but I'm okay with it. And I've recorded a lot of bands, a lot of singers, and even the best of them sounded better with a little bit of tuning, even if it was just a light touch. And I've had so many more experiences where the singer is frankly not that good, but the song and the melody and the lyrics are really good. And I'm thankful that I can use Autotune to cover that gap and get the song out there for the fans that love it. Because where the magic really is the melody, the lyrics, and the feeling behind the performance. It's not in the accuracy of the pitch. And we know this because if you flip it around and you have a bad melody and bad lyrics, it doesn't matter whether the vocals are in tune or not because nobody's going to listen to the song. So as long as you can edit tastefully and not butcher a performance, I see Autotune as a tool that lets you enhance all of those other things that truly matter. Well, sure, maybe we get a lot more bad music because of this, but I think we get a lot more great music too. Think about watching a movie. It's not like we expect everything to be one continuous shot with no edits or special effects. We just want to be entertained and feel something and experience the story. And we're not concerned about how much of it was raw versus Hollywood magic. And I don't see why it should be much different with music. I don't necessarily want to hear the most raw version of a song. I want to hear the best version of a song. There will always be people on the sidelines and in the stands complaining and criticizing others, and there's certainly a lot of that here on YouTube. But if you're an aspiring producer or engineer who wants to make records that a lot of people actually listen to, then stop debating, stop complaining, just get on with the job, learn how to do it the way the pros do, so you can actually have a shot at being in the game. And that's ultimately why I'm here, not to debate opinions, just to teach people how to do this in the real world and make modern competitive records that people actually listen to. So if that's why you're here, check out this video next to learn the 10 unspoken rules of audio engineering.